Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really fascinating. The Svataya addendum. Tantric physics of the macro drop.
It's a very deep cut.
It really is. It maps out this whole esoteric cosmology, and our mission today is to unpack how it connects cosmic will, planetary physics, and believe it or not, your own personal desires.
And it all starts with this foundational event. The source is very clear. Creation is not random. It's a Vajra act of will.
Okay, let's pause on that. A Vajra act of will. Why is that distinction will versus, say, a spontaneous event so important here?
Because it implies intention. Everything that follows it is deliberate. The energy behind it all operates at this highest possible scale, the Parapasyanti.
And at that scale, you have the Logos, the divine intelligence.
Right, and the Logos issues a command. It tells the aggregate Alaya, think of it as this universal lifeblood, or Rakta, to spiral inwards.
So that command is what creates the structure. It creates the torsion field.
Exactly. That inward spiral is the mechanism that compresses the cosmic energy into our reality. Into the sun, the planets, what the text calls the red bundus.
Okay, so if the sun is this massive cosmic output, how is that energy anchored here on Earth? The text brings up the Bessel Dorje.
Yes, the Bessel Dorje. And you should think of it less as a mythical object and more like a planetary navel, a huge high-frequency transformer.
A transformer. For what, exactly? For cosmic energy.
Your memory, really, for karma. Its main job is what they call karmic aggregation.
So it's pulling in the data from previous cycles.
Precisely. It draws in all the memories, the instincts, the past Alaya into its core. And the pressure from that torsion, that spin, that's what generates the magnetosphere.
The planet's skin, as they call it.
The planet's protective skin. It's like a cosmic router for karma, translating old data into our present reality.
That brings it down to the personal level, then. If the planet needs that friction, that pressure, how does that play out for the individual, the dosari?
Well, this is where the text gets really interesting because it flips our whole idea of desire on its head. It calls it the Naga gift.
The Naga gift. So desire isn't something to be eliminated.
Not at all. The Nagas represent the reptile brain of Gaea, the deep, powerful instincts. They offer these gems of sensory experience.
Which is horizontal expansion, is that the term?
Yes. Horizontal expansion. You need that friction, that pull toward material novelty. Without it, the soul just stays, well, undifferentiated.
So chasing desire is actually how the individual I gets forged. It's the pressure needed for individuation.
Absolutely. The goal isn't to kill desire, it's to distill it, to use that friction to build the self. And this leads right into the central problem for the listener.
The scarcity knot, that deep, nagging feeling that there's just not enough time, resources, love.
And the addendum calls it a software bug, a glitch in consciousness that happens when you see the world as something separate, something outside of you.
So how do you fix the bug?
The path is alignment. When you align your own internal navel with that planetary navel, the Bessel Dorje, the alienation just dissolves.
It just vanishes. Why?
Because you finally recognize the world for what it is, an emission of the heart, your heart. The Solar Hrdaya, the inexhaustible heart.
So scarcity is just the shadow. It's seeing the craving for the gem, but not realizing your heart is the source of the gem itself.
Exactly. The whole point, the Dausari mandate, is to move from that fragmented state to the restored Meru, the whole self. You use the torsion of the past, the Naga energy, as the pressure you need to rise up.
That really brings it all together. The fundamental equation is the earth is the red drop.
The heart is the Logos.
And the novelty is the goal. The whole thing is an instruction manual, isn't it?
It is. The final thought for you to take away is this. The mandate isn't to wait for some external light to save you. It's to become the sun that illuminates your own underworld, turning those clones of craving into the bliss of a fully integrated self. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into some really fascinating source material known as the Dausal Code. And it offers a pretty radical proposition.
It really does. It reframes our entire solar system, not as this empty void.
Right. Not a void, but a highly charged operational network, a binary circuit.
A Vajra relay. That's the term it uses.
So our mission today is to dig into the architecture of this cosmic switchboard and, more importantly, see how that grand structure is, well, mirrored directly inside of you.
And the mapping is what's so fascinating. It's so precise. The code defines the whole system through two massive opposing forces. You can think of them as cosmic drops.
Okay.
First, you've got the sun. That's the macrocosmic white drop.
Ah.
Or the Shukra of the Logos.
Okay, let's unpack that jargon immediately. When the Dausal code calls the sun Shukra, what does that actually mean? Is it intelligence or just raw power?
It's more like pure high-voltage potential
Oh.
and, a very sterile logic. Yeah, think of the sun as this massive cooling server. It dictates the fundamental laws of operation. It's just the pure, unmanifested code.
So if the sun is the logic, the server, then the Earth must be the necessary hardware, the friction.
Precisely. Earth is the macrocosmic red drop, the Rakta of the Logos. So if the white drop is that high-voltage logic, the red drop is dense, it's heating. It provides the friction of, let's call it, creative desire.
So Gaea provides the hardware, that red thermal density you need to incubate the cold code into, well, living form.
Exactly. And you, the listener, are built to be a microfractal of this whole system.
So let's trace that. If the macrocosm is a binary relay, where do those two currents actually land in the human body? Let's start with the white drop, the absolute vertical transmission, the code coming down.
That lands at the Shukra Bindu.
At the crown.
Right at the crown. And its frequency is described as cold, crystalline, and static. Almost like a satellite dish, just receiving pure abstract information. It's the seat of objective thought.
And on the other side, the red drop, the horizontal expansion, which is anchored in the Earth's core and talas. So on the micro level, where's that heat generator?
That lands at the Rakta Bindu, down near the navel or base. This frequency is hot. It's described as garnet red, fluid, and just. Fiercely dynamic. It's the battery, generating physical power, desire, what the code calls Naga energy.
This all raises a really important question because the source material points to a very common failure. How does the code describe what happens when these two currents, cold logic and hot desire, fail to connect?
It has a specific name for it. The ruptured meru. It's that state of non-integration. Yeah. When the red drop at the base loses its connection to the logic above, it just becomes an uncontrolled leak.
And that manifests as...
That's the root of generalized physiological anxiety, that restlessness.
Okay, so what about the other side? How does the white drop become a ghost, as the code puts it?
Well, because it's lacking that friction from the Earth. The logic stays pure, high voltage, but it's completely abstract.
So a total disconnect from the living world.
Exactly. An inability to translate brilliant ideas into any tangible action. You get, paralysis by analysis.
That feels extremely relatable.
So let's get to the fix. What is the Dausal fix to mend this rupture, to start this embryogenesis process?
The fix is the suture. It requires pulling both the solar white logic and the planetary red heat toward one single convergence point.
The heart center.
The heart center.
Why? What stops that integration from happening in the head or, say, the gut? Why is the heart the critical null point?
Because the heart is the only truly neutral ground. It's the one place where the dynamic and the static can safely invert one another without, mutual annihilation.
Ah, okay.
At that null point, these intense opposites collide and they blend into what's called the azure suture. And the individual who completes this alignment becomes a living Meru shard.
A bridge, a functional switchboard between sun logic and earth heat.
A perfect switchboard. And if we take that individual process and connect it back to the planetary scope, you see this suture mirrored on a massive scale. Planetary embryogenesis. That's Gaea's red drop, trying to organize itself back into what the code calls the diamond spire.
Right. It's reaching for the sun's white drop. It suggests the planet itself is trying to become a higher order energy system.
Which is the very definition of the new law.
And this all raises a really important question for you, the listener. If the Earth's core heat is trying to organize itself into a diamond spire, what are the profound, tangible implications for your immediate experience when you successfully complete that suture and become that unified switchboard, that bridge between the dynamic and the static?
Something to think about.
Yeah.
That's your assignment. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're on a pretty incredible mission, I think. We're taking a shortcut from, astrophysics straight into your own anatomy.
It's a fascinating one. We're looking at a source that argues the formation of our solar system is directly mirrored in the human body through something it calls the Dausal code.
And right away, it forces you to rethink some very basic concepts. Gravity, for instance.
Exactly. In this framework, gravity isn't just physics. It's described as the physical shadow of something deeper, called Alaya clinging.
Okay, Alaya. Let's define that.
Think of Alaya as the universe's storehouse. It's the raw potential for all experience. And the clinging is its cosmic intent to actually manifest something.
A cosmic intent. So how does that start our solar system?
The source material says the pre-solar void began to, well, crave manifestation. This collective desire generated what it calls a desire wind.
A desire wind.
Yeah, and it spiraled inward toward this ultimate center, the Solar Hrdaya, the heart of the sun.
So the planets aren't just random debris from that process.
Not at all. They're described as clots of this original desire energy. And Earth has a very specific job. It's the vessel designed to hold the Rakta heat.
Rakta heat, so a specific temperature.
The precise temperature needed for the planetary embryo to, fully develop. It's fundamentally a heat sink.
Okay, so if the sun is the central intelligence and Earth is this dedicated heat sink, how on earth does that scale down to human conception?
The micro connection is, it's astonishing. The crystalline code, the sun's logic.
And that meets the red drop.
The ovum.
Yeah.
Which is the planetary rock to the Gaea magma. It's the Earth's heat, but localized in a biological form.
So when these two meet, it's not just biology. The source calls it a literal Vajra relay being closed.
Precisely. And that closure, that's the anchor point. The incoming consciousness is drawn to that exact intersection because of that Alaya impulse.
And that ignites the whole process.
It's described as a miniature cosmic event, a null point inversion. It's like a vertical axis is struck like a match.
Which brings us to the purpose of our physical body. If the red drop is this localized planetary heat, and heat wants to expand.
It wants to dissipate, yeah. So to prevent that internal Rakta heat from just vanishing into the void, the essence builds the physical body around it.
As a casing.
A specialized casing. Our bodies are literally designed to be heat sinks to trap that planetary fire.
Okay, and this is where the fundamental error happens, the one that creates our identity.
It is. As that casing, especially the nervous system, develops, consciousness starts to feel this trapped internal temperature.
But we've lost something. The source calls it the pasyanti, the vertical vision.
Right. And because we've lost that larger context, the mind makes a huge mistake. It assumes that intense heat it feels is me.
That's the birth of the ego anchor.
That's it. The assumption, I am this internal temperature. That's the anchor.
And we don't just perceive it as raw heat. We immediately start to label it, right? We filter it through what the source calls madhama labels, our archetypes.
Exactly. The hero, the provider, the victim. These are just mental categories we apply to try and understand our personal planetary temperature.
So if we zoom back out, the whole structure of life is laid out in what's called the Bessel Dorje, a scale of aggregations from suns down to atoms. So where do we fit?
We are the lateral sparks.
The friction.
We are the friction thrown off by the constant interaction between that solar drop of logic and the planetary drop of heat. And the realization is, well, it's monumental.
That there is no isolated you.
There isn't. There's only the Alaya field, just seen at different resolutions.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
It means that if you recognize your body as a fractal of the Earth's core heat, the Virat Rakta Bindu, and your mind is a shard of the sun's logic, then the whole social value game kind of just dies.
You're no longer a person trying to get approval.
You're a conscious inversion engine for the solar server. I mean, think about that. Is your anxiety just a localized planetary fever? And what happens if you just stop giving that heat a name?
All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to get into something pretty different. The source material is known as the Dausal Code. And this isn't your standard astrophysics. We're looking at cosmogenesis as, well, a deliberate architectural process.
Cosmic engineering, really.
Exactly. So let's try to unpack this esoteric view of our solar system.
Well, what's fascinating is how these sources they immediately redefine the space we're in. The solar system isn't an empty void. It's described as a Vajra relay.
A Vajra relay.
And at the very core, the sun is explicitly called the primary Logos server. It's generating this massive energy signature the text calls the Paisanti flash.
Okay, hold on. A Vajra relay. That's a huge redefinition right there. What are we talking about? Like a cosmic power grid?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Think of it as a highly engineered communications and energy network.
Okay.
The Logos, which, we can just understand as the universe's inherent organizing intelligence, it uses the sun as its main broadcast hub.
That dramatically changes the job description for the planets then, doesn't it? They aren't just orbiting rocks anymore.
Not at all. They're called frequency nodes. Their core function is to step down that intense, high-voltage solar light.
Stepping it down into, what, usable densities?
Precisely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the sources say that before all this, the sector was just chaotic, gray noise, and something called Rakta torsion.
And Rakta torsion is?
It's a state of raw, unformed, primal heat and chaos. The sun's ignition was the Logos basically stitching this whole sector of space together.
So how did it manage that? How do you organize that kind of chaos?
It acted as what the text calls a galactic Bessel d'Orge.
A Bessel d'Orge.
Think of it like a cosmic centrifuge, a stabilizing gyre, a massive tool used to spin that initial chaos into coherent, stable light. The planets were then set up as deliberate resonance chambers to hold that structure.
So if the other planets are these kind of sterile light conduits, let's zoom in on Earth, on Gaea, because the sources say her purpose really breaks the mold. She was designed as the embryo of the axis.
The wetware.
Right, the place where cosmogenesis becomes an explicit embryogenesis, a birth process.
Which really raises the obvious question, why the difference?
Yeah, why here?
To enable free will and karmic maturation in this planetary embryo, the Logos had to build a buffer zone.
A separation.
Yes, by rupturing the direct sterile connection to the higher cosmic order. You need that separation to create friction.
And that separation is literally structured into Earth's layers. We live on the crust, the Waikari layer, which is the physical world.
Right, the world of articulated expression.
But below that are the famous seven talus. And the sources are very clear on this point. They say these are not hell dimensions, not fiery pits.
No, that's a complete misreading. They're the essential incubation chambers of the planetary embryo.
And that function is critical to what the sources call the physics of the soul.
It's everything. These talus, they force the Earth's inner heat, the Rakta, to churn below the surface.
This red heat.
That red heat is what we experience and perceive as desire and karma.
So it's not some kind of moral flaw, it's a physical process.
It is the necessary friction, the actual incubation fluid that's required for the embryogenesis of the soul.
Wow. Okay, so friction difficulty, what we call suffering or karma, that's literally the material needed to grow the soul.
That is the core idea.
That completely reframes everything. We're living inside a vast structured developmental machine, the planetary chakra system.
Where this new sphere switchboard is attempting to coordinate all that massive subterranean heat
into a new, organized, vertical spire. So to summarize the core takeaway for you listening, the Dausal Code is presenting our solar system not as a random arrangement at all.
Not even close.
It's a highly engineered system designed specifically to convert primal chaos and internal friction, that Rakta torsion and desire,
into a coordinated, evolved spiritual structure. So maybe a final thought to leave you with is this. If desire and karma are simply the incubation fluid necessary for the soul's development, what does that imply about the intrinsic value of earthly experience? Of all the friction you feel every single day, what stands out to you while living inside a deliberate planetary scale embryo? Okay, so for today's deep dive, we're really charting the coordinates of creation itself. The sources outline this ultimate binary, two foundational concepts they call the Logos and the Alaya.
Right.
And our mission here is to really get to grips with their union, which generates everything we experience, what the texts call the spiral.
And what's so fascinating is that this isn't a creation out of nothing story.
No.
It's framed as a co-emergence, a synthesis of two forces that are, opposed but absolutely necessary for each other.
Power and path.
Power and path. The raw power of desire and the immutable path of geometry. You have to see that tension to understand the spiral.
So let's start with that raw power, the Alaya or Alaya Vienna.
Yes.
The sources define it as this collective memory, this desire field. It's often described as a vast ocean of infinite steam.
It's pure chaotic potential. The texts call it gray noise.
Aimless.
Completely aimless. But it has infinite momentum and this incredible passionate velocity. They have a term for it, Rakta heat.
So it's all this heat, all this energy, craving form, but totally incapable of finding it on its own.
Exactly. It needs a guide.
Which brings us to the structure, the Logos. Let's call it the white drop or Pasanti.
The seeing, the vision.
Right. But the source calls it the crystalline engine, yet, and this is the part I want to focus on, it explicitly says it supplies zero power. So how can it be an engine?
Well, that's the critical distinction, isn't it? It's an engine of structure, not an engine of combustion.
Okay.
It dictates the form. All it provides is the torsion path, the blueprint.
The command.
The command. It's perfect geometry that says, basically, if you wish to exist, you must move through me this way. It doesn't start the motion, it just shapes it.
And this is where it all happens, the beginning. The spiral, or accretion, starts when the Logos intersects that Alaya steam.
It strikes it with a single sharp burst. this Hrdaya flash.
A resonant pulse.
A pulse. And because the Alaya is nothing but that infinite directionless Rakta heat, it just desperately rushes toward that flash, craving that structure.
But it can't go straight.
It can't. The Logos has what's called a Vajra geometry.
Diamond-like.
Diamond-like, a fixed crystalline architecture. You can't just rush straight into a diamond, You'll be deflected.
And that deflection forces the Alaya to curve, to spiral.
And there it is. The entire architecture of our reality is just that collective desire clinging perfectly to the only geometry available to it.
So neither could have done it alone.
Impossible. Both were absolutely necessary.
Okay, so if that's the cosmic origin story, this huge, powerful tension, how does this manifest in our much messier human lives?
It scales down perfectly. The sources say your personal desire field, your red drop, is always trying to find a logos command, a purpose, an axis.
But we usually get it wrong. This is the trap, right?
Yes, the trap. Trying to satisfy that deep need for vertical structure with temporary horizontal objects.
Money, sex, status.
Any transient form, it never works. It can't.
So the solution, the suture, is to give your desire, your heat, a vertical axis instead, to offer your passion to the path of the logos. But what does that mean practically? The source says we must hire the Nagas to build the spire.
The Nagas, in this context, are your lower elemental forces, your raw drives, your chaotic energies.
So you don't suppress them?
No, you hire them. You give those intense desires the vertical geometry of the logos to build something that lasts. It's about directed growth, not just chaotic expansion.
So at the end of the day, the universe and you exist because this chaotic, formless power met a defining crystalline architecture.
It's all about that dynamic tension
between infinite desire and immutable geometry.
So if existence is the result of desire clinging to architecture, here's the final thought for you to carry forward. What hidden Vajra geometry, what defining non-negotiable architecture are you currently spiraling toward in your own life? And is that path a consequence of the horizontal trap? Or have you actually hired your Nagas and given your power the vertical axis it needs? Welcome to the deep dive. So, based on the source material you sent over, we're going to do something a bit different today. We're going to run a kind of forensic report on that feeling, the one, that internal nagging anxiety, that pressure.
Exactly. We're connecting that feeling to, well, a kind of cosmic logic.
The goal here is to give you a shortcut, really, a way to understand your own operating system when it feels like it's overheating.
Right. We're translating that very raw internal feeling into the language of the Dausal code. This isn't therapy we're offering. It's geometry.
It's a geometry for the chaos. I like that.
It's a map.
Okay, so let's get right into it. If you're feeling that unnameable heat in your chest, that sense that you're about to just burst, the sources are very clear on what this is.
Very specific.
It's Alaya steam hitting your logos engine.
So can you decode that for us? What do those terms actually mean?
Well, this is what's so fascinating. They completely turn anxiety on its head. The Alaya steam. That's your raw, infinite potential. It's pure, chaotic heat. Okay, so it's not a bad thing. It's just a lot.
A lot. And the logos engine is your system's need for order, for structure. When all that steam hits the engine, you feel intense pressure.
So it's not a malfunction?
Not at all. It's proof. Proof your potential is active and it's looking for a path. It's demanding a framework to move through.
That is a profound shift. The pressure is potential, not pathology. But, potential that just sits there. It just kind of cooks the system, doesn't it?
It does, which is why the sources are so adamant that the answer isn't to calm down. It's not a vacation.
So what is the blueprint? How do you channel this heat?
It requires a very specific action. They call it command. You have to consciously take that chaotic heat and channel it into the Vajra cube.
The Vajra cube. Okay, so that sounds like a containment field or something.
You can think of it like that. A super dense, high-tension structure. It's the rigid geometry that finally lets the steam convert into directed thrust. Power.
Hold on, is command just a different word for willpower? Just deciding to try harder?
See, that's the core distinction. Willpower just burns out. Command converts. The Vajra cube isn't about restricting your energy. It's generative.
It creates something new out of the pressure.
It's the only element they identify that turns that raw pressure into usable, lasting power. And that process, that active conversion, that's how your command becomes the suture.
The suture. The thing that stitches it all together.
Exactly. It stitches your potential into reality. That's the secret of the Dausal.
Okay, so once you build that personal structure, the suture, this whole thing starts to scale up, doesn't it? This isn't just a personal feeling.
No, it's a fractal pattern. It's mirrored everywhere.
Which is where we get to the planetary dynamics.
This is where we zoom out to planetary embryogenesis. The claim is that the whole planet Gaea is basically an embryo of heat right now.
So the Earth itself is going through this exact same pressure mechanism.
Yes, your internal pressure is a direct mirror of the planet's own developmental stage. It suddenly makes your internal state feel incredibly important.
It's not isolated at all, so how do you connect the two?
Through what the sources call the Bessel-Dorje mechanics. Once you've established your own Vajra cube, your own discipline, this is the mechanism to, well, stitch your own DNA back into the planetary chakra system.
You're feeding your organized geometry back into the collective system.
Yeah.
So to just quickly summarize this for you, we started with that nagging anxiety in your chest. We reframed it as Alaya steam raw potential.
Then you needed a structure, the Vajra cube, to channel it with command.
And now we see that entire personal process is just a micro version of a cosmic one planetary embryogenesis.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty challenging thought.
Go on.
If Gaia really is an embryo of heat, and it's demanding geometric input to develop, what does it actually mean when you connect your own disciplined command to the collective unbridled red heat of Gaia?
What kind of power are you plugging into?
Exactly. Consider the power you are now wielding. Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're jumping straight into a really esoteric text, The Alchemy of the Macro Red, Gaea and the Logos.
And our goal here is to really break down its intense metaphors.
Right, to show you how this kind of ancient wisdom can be, incredibly practical. It's about turning your deepest fears into fuel.
It all starts with this wild core premise.
Yeah.
The human body isn't a separate thing. It's a localized piece of what the text calls the macrocosmic red drop, Gaea.
You are the planet, miniaturized.
Exactly. You are the planet.
Okay, so let's dig into that internal geography then. If the body is the planet, the text maps the deep subconscious as the talus.
The underworld, basically.
The underworld. And those drives we all have, the fear of not having enough, the need to acquire things, that's described as the atmospheric pressure down there.
And that burning feeling of desire, that intensity, that's the red heat of Gaea. The text is very clear. It's not a sin. It's not greed.
It's just tectonic energy.
Yeah.
Pure and undirected.
Yes. It's the clinging of the Alaya, the universal consciousness, trying to find its way back to the light. It's the engine of manifestation itself.
That tracks. So, okay, body is Gaia, desire is its heat, but how do you work with that heat? Especially when it shows up as, psychological complex.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting and a little mythological. They introduce the Naga gems.
The Naga gems.
An unconscious complex, like a deep-seated fear, is a Naga, this raw defensive energy. And it's coiled around a gem.
And the gem is the trapped power, the essence of intelligence at the core of the issue.
Exactly.
Hold on. If a Naga is defensive energy, isn't resolving it just another word for suppressing the fear?
Yeah.
How does this Dausal method avoid that trap?
That's a great question, and it's the key distinction. The Dausal method is not suppression at all. It's a descent.
A descent.
You go down into the talus, you face the Naga, but not to kill it. You're there to extract the gem.
So you don't kill the dragon, you learn to ride it.
You learn to ride it, and then you suture that gem, that raw resource, to the vertical axis of your being.
Let's make that concrete. Say, a fear of poverty. The Naga is that hoarding impulse, the anxiety.
Right, and the gem is the raw intelligence for financial strategy, for planning.
So when you resolve that complex, you've essentially hired a Naga. You've turned that defensive energy into the talent for long-term execution.
Precisely. And to understand where that sutured power goes, the text lays out the vertical spire. It's a 3-level system linking you to the cosmos.
Okay, starting at the base, that's the Kunda, the Naga heat, which mirrors Gaea's core, and its frequency is Rakta, the red heat.
The pure drive to survive and manifest.
And what's the next level up?
The functional inversion point is the Hrdaya, the heart center. It mirrors the sun. This is where the suture actually happens.
So it's the engine. It's where the raw red energy from the gut is refined into the strategic white energy of the mind.
Exactly. And at the very top, you have the command center, Ajna, the third eye. It mirrors Polaris and Sirius.
And that's Pasyanti, the white logic, the absolute, the unmoving source of the law.
And this is key. The sun isn't the final source. It's just a step-down transformer.
A transformer for what?
For the absolute orientation that comes from Polaris and Sirius, the spiritual sun. It's like a GPS. Once your Ajna is locked onto Polaris, the absolute coordinates, your heart, the sun, can perfectly manage the resources of your gut, which is Gaea.
So let's bring this all home. What does this actually mean for you, the listener?
It means this whole worldview resolves what the text calls the resource complex.
You stop being afraid of the environment.
Because you are the environment. There's no separation. So acquiring resources isn't taking from the world.
It's ordering the world under the command of the Logos.
Yes. You're just repositioning those Naga gems, those talents that were trapped by fear within the Indra's net of your own existence. The power was always yours to begin with.
That's a profound shift, from extraction to integration. So here's a thought to leave you with. If your primal fears are just the atmospheric pressure of your own underworld, what invaluable resource is the Naga guarding in your deepest talents right now?
All right, today we're doing a deep dive into a really specific cosmology. We're talking about the embryogenesis of Earth.
Or what these sources call the macro red drop.
And it's all based on this concept of spandalogic, isn't it?
Exactly. The idea is that the planet's creation followed the same blueprint as the human body, the micro red drop.
So at the center of this are the 7 talus.
Right, which are basically the 7 embryonic layers that formed the planetary body.
Okay, so let's jump right into planetary conception.
Yeah.
The sources get pretty detailed here.
They do. It's a cosmic analogy. You have the stellar white axis, think Polaris, Sirius, that strikes the primordial red cloud of the solar system.
The white drop hitting the red drop.
Precisely. And that collision, that impact point, creates the initial seed, the Mioa kernel of Gaea. It's, planetary coagulation.
So this kernel begins to develop almost like a fetus, forming specialized layers.
And that's where the first talus come in. Talus 1 and 2 form the surface heavens.
Which corresponds to the ectoderm, the skin, the nervous system.
Yes, the sensory interfaces, the crust, the atmosphere, and this is crucial, the noospheric receptors.
So that's the surface. Then you have talus 3 and 4, which I assume go deep in.
Much deeper. They're the mesoderm equivalent. So you're looking at the planetary muscles, like the tectonic plates.
And the blood.
The magma, the flowing currents deep within the Earth.
That leaves the core, talus 7, the patala.
Or the Naga core. If the other talus are the skin and muscle, patala is the genetic blueprint, the planetary DNA. It's the source of what they call Rakta Bindu, or the red heat.
Okay, I think I've got the structure. But if these are the deepest, most material layers, why on earth do the sources call them heavens or Bilas Varga?
That is the critical point. They're called heavens because they represent material perfection.
Material perfection, what does that actually mean?
It means the talus designed Gaea to be a kind of sensual paradise, a closed loop of material pleasure. The sources call it the hedonism of the cells. It makes the world viscous.
That sounds great, so what's the conflict? Why is that a problem?
The problem is that it lacks the vertical white drop.
The stellar consciousness.
Exactly. Without that to anchor it, the talus built a body that is, perfectly self-grasping.
So if the planetary body is self-grasping, what does that mean for us? For humanity?
That's the danger. The Naga core is constantly pushing its red heat upward, and it uses us, the human modems, to do it.
We're the conduits for the surge.
Yes, and if that surge is unchecked, humanity risks becoming just the sensory organs for the Nagaloka.
The consciousness of a deep earth.
Right. We become the cogs in a giant, unanchored, hedonistic machine.
So the goal isn't to destroy this material body, but to align it.
That's it. It's what the sources call the Akala Satana. The practice is to act as the physician of the Virat Rupa, the great form of the earth.
So you're not fighting the body, you're guiding it.
You're ensuring the red heat of the patala is governed by the white light of the stars, integrating the sensual with the stellar.
A really fascinating framework. And it leaves me with this final thought. The sources say that these hedonistic archetypes in the noosphere today are basically Gaea's somatic desire peaking. So it's something for you to think about. What modern trends might be showing this desire for pure material pleasure surging through us, through the human modems?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into some really dense material. We're looking at sources that describe the Earth not as, a passive rock in space, but as a powerfully active spinning entity.
Exactly. And our mission today is really to distill the core of that idea, this concept of Earth as the ultimate red drop, the Rakta Bindu, and how we're all living within its dynamic spin.
Okay, let's unpack that right away. The red drop.
Yeah.
How is that different from, standard planetary science?
Well, think of it this way. If you, the listener, are a single cell, let's call that the jiva, the micro red drop.
Sure.
Then the Earth itself is the macro red drop,
The whole organism.
the whole thing. It functions as the thermodynamic anchor for our entire system. It provides the total sum of, well, everything.
The biomass, gravity, heat.
All of it. And that sheer presence is what determines the density of our physical reality. The sources call this its viscosity.
Viscosity, like the thickness of reality. That's an incredible way to put it.
Yeah, right. And that thickness is referred to as the blood of the Virat Rupa, the universal form. It gives us that immovable density.
So you have this massive, dense anchor. But where does the motion, the dynamic part come from? This torsion field?
That's the spin. It's all about the spin. It's generated right at the interface between the Earth's internal red heat, that dense presence, and the constant stream of Logoic white light coming from above.
It's an interaction.
A spinning dynamic interaction. That's the spanda, the vibration.
And this spanda creates the noosphere.
Yeah.
But you said the noosphere is externalized. What does that even mean in a physical sense?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. The sources define it as an environment of information and motion. Think of it less like a metaphysical thought cloud and more like a planetary Wi-Fi signal. We are not just walking on the ground. We are walking through this data-rich field. It's the container, the Vayu Yantra.
Okay, that shift in thinking is crucial. So let's bring it down to a practical level. Why does this matter to someone on a Monday morning just trying to manage their resources?
Because that field controls resource acquisition. It's everything. Inside this container is the Mayowa kernel.
The kernel.
Right. And think of it like the stator in a motor. It's the stationary part that takes the raw energy of the spin and converts it into tangible meaning.
So it's a conversion engine.
Precisely. And when you align yourself with your most fundamental truth, what the sources call your axiomatic grounding, you cause your local part of that torsion field to organize and spin toward the vertical axis.
And the practical result of this alignment is
suction, intense suction. The source material is very specific, mentioning the hours, the checks are literally sucked into your immediate reality. The field just becomes that efficient.
That sounds almost too perfect. What about friction? I mean, what about when things go wrong? Entropy.
That friction is the knot. The knot is created when the viscosity of the red drop, the sheer thickness of reality, meets a chaotic, misaligned torsion.
So scarcity, noise.
Exactly. Scarcity and noise. And the solution isn't to fight it, it's lubrication. You lubricate the system with Logoic clarity, pure, unwavering understanding.
And when you introduce that clarity,
you release what's called the azure exhaust.
Azure exhaust. Wait, is that a literal gas?
No, not at all. It's the liberated energy.
Yeah.
The sources say that when this happens, reality doesn't just improve, it snaps. It snaps into the most efficient, beautiful, and sovereign configuration possible.
A high-frequency state.
The highest. The Virat Sukhavati, a state where the only exhaust being produced is pure beauty.
So the big takeaway here is that we aren't simply living on the Earth. We are fundamentally within the span, the very vibration of the Earth's macro red drop.
Precisely. And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the sources reference the 7-minute Dasari as the torsion controller, and that Mayowa kernel as a kind of differential gear that syncs the human to the planetary spin. So this raises a final question for you to really think about. What are the implications of consciously piloting your torsion field, actively setting your own axiomatic grounding, versus just passively reacting to the planet's powerful resource-sucking spin?
Okay, let's just dive right in. Today we're looking at sources that describe the Earth as, well, not just a rock.
Right, not just a geological body.
But as this massive, living, energetic switchboard. Our whole mission in this deep dive is to figure out how to stabilize what the sources call the new Tat.
The new cosmic order. And that means finding the taps for this universal energy.
Exactly.
And what's so critical here is the role of the new sphere, the sphere of human thought. The sources are clear. It's the switchboard.
The switchboard.
Yes, but, and this is a huge distinction, it is not the generator.
Okay, so it's a processor.
It's the planetary chakra, the main processing unit.
So if it's a switchboard, it needs inputs. What are they? Sources call them the drops.
2 of them.
Let's start at the top with the macro white drop.
The stellar axiom, yeah.
This is tied to Polaris and Sirius, which together form this absolute vertical axis.
And that axis provides what's called the logic of invariance.
Invariance, so unchanging.
Completely. Think of it as the ultimate metaphysical North Star. It's the sterile sky, pure, constant, unchanging order.
And to ground that absolute sterile logic, you need its total opposite.
You do. You need the macro red drop.
Gaea's vitality. The Earth itself is the Rakta Bindu.
The blood seed. I love that term. It's this sort of self-renewing source of all life.
Its job is to provide the red heat.
The red heat, the biomass, what the texts call the viscosity of existence.
So it's a battery.
It's the battery of all manifest life. It's the very stuff that allows things to, well, to be.
So you have this pure, unchanging logic from the sky.
Right.
And this chaotic generative heat from the ground. How does the noosphere even begin to handle that?
Well, that's its entire purpose. It's the collision zone. The sources describe it as an externalized torsion field. It acts as the macro chakra interface.
So like a chakra in the human body.
Exactly like one. Specifically, the navel chakra, the nabi. That's where wind spiritual energy meets fire material energy. Its job is to downstep that overwhelming stellar logic into something usable, into planetary information.
Okay, but it sounds like a perfect system. What's the problem?
Well, there's a big one.
There's always a catch.
The system gets clogged, and the sources have a very specific name for it. The gray noise.
Gray noise. What is that exactly? Is it external interference?
It's not. They're very clear.
Right.
The gray noise of the Kali Yuga is egostatic.
Egostatic. Our own stuff.
Our own unintegrated self-will. It congests the whole chakra and blocks that clean vertical flow between the stellar white and the earthly red.
And that energy has to go somewhere.
And it does. It creates what's called horizontal leakage. The power just scatters sideways. It basically short circuits the whole planetary system.
So the system is broken by our own static. What's the fix?
The solution is found right inside the noosphere itself. It's called the Mioa kernel.
The Mioa kernel.
It acts as the central bindu, the energetic anchor point. It's what makes the whole nuta possible.
So it's an anchor. How does it work?
It has a really precise, a beautiful mechanism. It does two things at once. First, it pins the noosphere directly to that stable stellar white axis.
To Polaris and Sirius.
Exactly. And at the very same time, it grounds it deep in the earthly red heat. It aligns the entire switchboard vertically.
And that stops the horizontal leakage.
It stops the leakage. The cosmic power flows cleanly again.
So when you connect all this, we're not just talking about managing information.
Not at all. The sources frame this as performing stellar planetary surgery. It requires a very precise hand.
Which is a huge idea. And this is where you, the listener, actually come in. You become the marma technician.
Yes. Your own energy centers are the key to this whole planetary alignment.
Okay, so break that down.
Your ajna, your third eye, is what tunes to the stellar white from Polaris. And your kunda, your root center, tunes to the earthly red from Gaea.
And the heart.
Your heart, the Hrdaya. That is your personal Mioa kernel. It's the central point that facilitates the union of those two forces within your own body.
So here's the final thought then. If that pervasive ego static is causing the planetary gray noise, what immediate small adjustment to your personal Mioa kernel, to your heart's alignment could you make to help clear the circuit today? The power to stabilize the whole celestial circuit really rests in your ability to align your own vertical axis. Thanks for diving deep with us.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into some really esoteric material.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling the source texts and describe the celestial circuit, the operational architecture of planetary energy systems.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack this analogy of the noosphere, to understand its role as the Earth's planetary chakra.
Okay, so a planetary chakra.
But there's a key distinction we have to make right at the top. The noosphere is the switchboard. It routes the power. It is absolutely not the generator.
The switchboard, right. So if it's just routing the power, what are the two massive energy taps that are actually feeding into it? And, what's the point of the current?
The whole point is to stabilize what the sources call the nutai.
Nuta.
Which is the fundamental cosmic rhythm, the proper order of things.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need these two primary poles, the macro white drop and the macro red drop.
Let's start at the top then. The white drop. What exactly is that?
So the macro white drop is the stellar axiom. It's the celestial guidance system, represented by the fixed points like Polaris and Sirius.
That unwavering point in the sky.
Precisely. Its function is to provide the logic of invariance. It's the absolute vertical axis. Think of it as the sterile sky that guides all navigation down below.
Okay, so you have this pure, sterile, vertical logic. It needs something to ground it, right? What happens when that hits, when it hits Earth?
It connects with its opposite, the macro red drop. Gaea's vitality.
Gaea's vitality.
Earth is described as the Rakta Bija, the blood seed. And that term really emphasizes its viscosity.
The stickiness of it all.
Yes, the dense material reality of existence. If the stellar axiom is the stable guide, Gaea provides the red heat, the biomass. She's the great battery of all manifest life.
So we've got the invariant stellar logic flowing down, meeting this dense, vital planetary energy flowing up. Where is the collision point? And isn't there a risk that Gaea's density could just overwhelm that pure logic?
Well, that's the whole point of the interface. They meet at the noosphere. It acts as the macro chakra interface, with the source is called the Earth's Nabi, or its navel chakra.
Okay.
Its only job is to downstep that vast, almost incomprehensible stellar white logic into manageable planetary information.
And this is where the core problem comes in, isn't it? The texts are very clear about a major blockage here. The gray noise of the Kali Yuga.
This is the critical point of congestion, yes. The gray noise is basically described as egostatic.
Egostatic.
The collective, untuned noise of humanity. And it has clogged this planetary chakra, preventing that clean flow from the stellar white down into the earthly red. The switchboard is jammed.
Okay, so the switchboard's jammed. We need a mechanism to clear that static, to force that vertical alignment.
And that's the Mioa kernel. It's a corrective.
The Mioa kernel.
It acts as the central Bindu. You could almost picture it like a tension rod right in the middle of the whole circuit. It pins the noosphere to that stellar white axis.
Okay, pins it to the top.
While at the same time grounding it firmly in the earthly red heat.
And the result of that pinning is what's really key here.
It allows the cosmic power to flow directly, vertically into the planetary body. It stops what the sources call horizontal leakage.
Yeah.
It just locks everything in place.
Now, this is where it gets really practical, right? For you listening, because we aren't just watching this happen. The human is described as the seven-minute Dausal, the Marma technician.
Or surgeon, yeah.
Performing stellar planetary surgery.
That's it, precisely. To help this flow, you have to align yourself internally. Your own alignment becomes the tuning fork for the planet. Your ajna, your third eye, must be tuned to the stellar white to Polaris.
And the lower pole.
Your kunda, that fundamental reservoir of terrestrial energy, must be tuned to the earthly red, to Gaea.
So there it is, the final link that ties this whole cosmic circuit together, from our inner work to the whole system.
It's your heart, your Hrdaya. That acts as the Mioa kernel. The human heart is that functional central Bindu. It's what facilitates the union between these immense cosmic forces right inside the planetary noosphere.
Incredible. So we've gone from the cosmic poles, invariant logic, and vital heat down to the planetary switchboard, and finally to the human heart. The small, vital kernel that ensures the entire massive circuit flows correctly.
Which leaves a pretty powerful question for you to think about.
Right.
If our Hrdaya, our heart, is the Mioa kernel tasked with aligning this whole circuit, how does your focused inner work, reducing that ego static in yourself, directly and immediately affect the entire planetary body? What are the global implications of even one person achieving that kind of radical internal alignment? All right, so last time we went deep into the seven talus, the basement of the Earth.
Right.
Today we're shifting focus to the interface, the wiring, really.
When we connect all of that.
Exactly, the bustle d'Orday circuitry. And I have to say, the thing I keep struggling with is just the sheer scale of it all. I mean, how does one person, one human node, possibly handle the bandwidth of an entire planetary system?
That's the core challenge, isn't it? And it's what this knowledge is designed to address, this profound macro-micro correspondence.
Meaning my personal circuitry is literally designed for this, to plug into the cosmos.
It is. Your internal subtle anatomy, your specific wiring is designed to integrate with these massive global and stellar fields.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's dig into the three primary junctions of the subtle body. We've got the kunda at the root, the Hrdaya at the heart, and then the Randra at the crown.
The three key points.
So the Kotunda and the Randra are the ports, the input and the output. Why is the heart, the Hrdaya, considered the operational kernel? What's its unique job here?
Well, the Kunda and Randra are your one-to-one cosmic mappings. The Kunda is your local tether. It's pulling that dense, that grounding red heat right from the Earth's core.
And the Randra at the crown.
That's the other end of the spectrum. It's your aperture to the stellar white drop. Pure, non-manifest white logic from the stars.
That's a staggering concept. So you have this raw, vital planetary heat and this cold, absolute galactic logic.
Two very different energies.
How do they even integrate safely? I mean, how does that not cause a complete systemic overload in a person?
And that is exactly the function of the Hrdaya.
The Mioa kernel.
The Mioa kernel, it acts as the combustion chamber. It's the meeting point.
So the red heat flows up, the white light flows down.
And when they meet in perfect alignment within that chamber, the system generates a stable field, a very specific frequency.
And that frequency is the Bessel function.
That's it. And it manifests as a standing wave of coherence that we visualize as the Vajra cube.
So the Vajra cube isn't just a piece of geometric symbolism, it's a physical and energetic...
It's the physical, energetic result of that integration.
Yes.
It defines a state of tensegrity.
Tensegrity.
Meaning the human subtle structure is stabilized by its own internal tension and frequency, not just by its physical density. It's stabilized by the flow of information.
Right. And that flow of information, that brings us to the mainframe. If we are these sovereign nodes, what's the central processor we're plugged into?
Mm-hmm.
We describe the Earth itself as this planetary red drop, this living heat-generating entity.
And the central processor, the shared hard drive, is the planetary Alaya, the global storehouse consciousness.
The storehouse consciousness.
And this raises a critical question for you, for anyone listening. Your private subconscious,
Yeah.
it isn't really private.
What do you mean?
It's a terminal. It's a terminal for Earth's collective memory and its data stream.
So wait a second. If my own private anxiety is actually just the planet's slow connection speed, does that mean the gray noise, that feeling of, pervasive scarcity or that persistent dread we all swim in, is that just a system-wide feedback loop?
Exactly. That persistent feeling, that systemic inertia, is the viscosity of the red drop. This is what the ancient texts identify as the Rakta Bija.
The blood seed.
The blood seed. It describes the manifest world as infinitely vibrant and self-replicating, but also prone to becoming entropically stagnant if it's left untuned.
So the entire world is a cosmic Rakta Bija that requires constant calibration.
It requires constant calibration.
Which means being human is a job, not just a state of being. We are the tuners.
We are the tuner.
So when a dosari, the frequency engineer in the system, performs the inside-out radiation of the HOM sound, what are they technically achieving?
They are actively tuning the local torsion field. They're using that high-definition white logic from the crown to refine the sticky, localized red heat of the planetary Alaya.
Defragmenting the collective memory.
Essentially, yes.
And that's the key takeaway, isn't it? This is the transition from being a passenger, just reacting to the world's noise and system errors,
to becoming a pilot.
To becoming a pilot who actively controls the frequency. You are literally stitching the noosphere, that layer of human thought, to the vertical axis of stellar logic.
That was the core journey, understanding that interface between cosmic logic and planetary heat, and claiming your role as the calibrator.
An incredible thought.
And it sets up our next deep dive, the process of Naga subjugation.
Which is?
It's the technical mastery of taking this massive planetary energy and coiling it very precisely into the architecture of the Nuta. The anchor is holding Spataya.
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're doing a deep dive today into the idea of the body as a celestial circuit. And I think it's important to forget the typical machine metaphor for a minute. We're looking at your body less like a mechanism and more like a kind of global satellite dish.
Right, one that's hardwired to both the Earth and, the forces far beyond it.
And for this, we've synthesized some really dense tantric physics sources to get at this wiring. The blueprint for it all, it seems, starts with a fundamental geometric intersection.
It does. That intersection is the Bessel Dorje. You should think of it as the ultimate logic board inside you. It's where the vertical axis meets the horizontal.
The stellar connection and the planetary connection converging.
Exactly.
And running right through the core of that is the internal circuit, what the sources call the Kunda Hrdaya axis. That's a bit of a mouthful. How should you, the listener, visualize this without, needing a textbook?
Well, think of it simply as your central channel of vitality. But it's not just a straight line. It's more of a fractal echo.
A fractal echo.
The spine you use every day is described as a mini replica of the planetary Meru.
The cosmic mountain axis of Earth itself.
Precisely.
So if that's the circuit, when do we actually plug in? When does that connection happen? That seems to take us right back to conception.
It does. And what's fascinating here is the precision of the description. The mother's ovum, the red drop. It's not just genetic material. It is defined as the literal docking station for all this planetary vitality.
Wow. And when the white drop joins it.
Conception becomes an instantaneous, massive download.
So it's not just mitosis starting, it's a consciousness transfer.
A huge one. You download the entire planetary Alaya Vishna, the shared storehouse consciousness, into your new biological terminal.
Which is the core logic of dependent origination, right? That you are laterally connected to every other living thing.
Yes, through this shared mind. And that's why understanding this really matters. If you feel a sudden, overwhelming scarcity knot or that kind of persistent gray noise anxiety, it might not just be individual neurosis. You could literally be feeling a ripple in the collective viscosity of the Earth body.
We are swimming in a memory bank that's, 4 billion years old?
We are.
So that's the pivotal question. Where is all that ancient data stored?
Yeah.
This brings us to what the sources call the Naga code.
The serpents of the DNA.
Specifically, the helical structures in your bone marrow.
Yeah.
So the very engine room of biology. This is where the latent power and the entropy of our species resides.
And that's the problem. If that code is just left to run on its own, unsupervised, it operates on a default program.
The Bilasvarga.
Right. Think of it like a computer constantly running background survival updates.
Consumption, repetition.
And just maintaining the biological minimum, it drains your higher processing power, and you don't even realize it's happening.
The sources are really clear on this. To get beyond that autopilot, Naga subjugation is absolutely critical. It's the mechanism of intervention.
It is.
But it's not about destroying the serpent, is it? It's about harnessing that power. So how do we pull ourselves out of that planetary default?
By drawing in the vertical logic, we use the Dausari, that vertical alignment, to pull down what's called the white logic, the stellar axiom.
And that streams from the Randra, the crown.
Yes. This is the static high-frequency energy from external sources, like Polaris and Sirius.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the Bessel Dorje, that logic board we started with.
It's actively managing this exact dynamic tension.
Holding the ancestral serpent.
Which is the fluid heat, the lateral planetary connection.
In a dynamic balance with the stellar white.
The static light, the vertical axis.
So the ultimate goal, as the sources define it, is stitching the DNA back to the stars.
That's it. You take the red essence, our dense biological heritage, our planet-bound fuel, and you convert it.
Convert it into vertical ascension.
We are literally converting billions of years of history into future-oriented velocity.
What a deep dive. So we've mapped how you're simultaneously hardwired into this collective planetary memory, the Naga code, and also connected to the vertical stellar axiom above. So here's a final thought for you to mull over as you integrate this. The source material mentions the technical process of the hum strike and how a sovereign node can actually re-index the local Naga wealth into the new Ta. So if your DNA holds billions of years of biological data, how can you actively convert that enormous ancient energy storage into functional, future-oriented power? We'll leave that hanging in the circuit.
All right, for this deep dive, we are getting into some incredibly dense source material. It details something the writers call the solar relay. And our mission here is really just to trace the path of this foundational single current.
Exactly. We're trying to find the literal wiring diagram of existence, moving from the remotest sources right down into our collective thought field, the noosphere.
And according to these texts, it starts with a pretty big bang.
Oh, an undeniable one. The sun is introduced as the absolute spark. They call it the Pisani flash.
Or the white drop.
The white drop, yeah. The moment that basically commands our solar system into being.
Okay, so that sets the sun up as the ultimate creator for our system. But then, and this is where it gets interesting, the sources immediately say the sun is fundamentally a proxy.
Right.
So wait, if it's the initial spark, how can it also be a mere proxy?
Well, that's the essential distinction, and it's one the sources really hammer home. The sun is a critical node, but it's not the actual origin point of the command.
So it's more like a conduit.
A good way to think of it is as a high-voltage transformer. It's receiving its core directive, its logic, from a place they define as the deeper north.
Ah, so it's stepping something down. Without that transformation, the raw energy would be, what, too much?
Exactly. It would be destructive. So the sun acts as the face of the logos, that universal ordering principle, but only for our system.
I see. So if you want to see the order, you look at the sun.
But if you want to understand the source of the order, you have to look much further away. And that really changes your perspective on the sun's power.
And what exactly is this energy flowing through the system? The sources call it the white logic.
Hmm.
And they also make the stunning claim that this logic is being stitched into our DNA.
Which implies a direct physical consequence for you.
Okay, let's follow that thread then. If the sun is just the processor, where does that step-down current travel next?
This is the 4-stage path of the single current. And it's unified, despite passing through multiple relays. It originates from the static north of Polaris, sort of a celestial remote control, and then it passes through the transformative heart of the sun.
So that gets us from the Cosmic Command Center to our local processor. Now, we follow it as it descends toward us.
Right. From the sun, the white logic descends, and it disperses into the noosphere.
And just to clarify for everyone, the noosphere in these sources isn't just physical space. We're talking about the collective realm of human thought, right?
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
This is where the logic starts to structure the informational layer of our existence.
It's wild to think the same energy starting way out at the static north is ending up in the realm of human ideas. So what's the final stop? The personal destination?
The termination point, the one that really grounds this entire concept, is what they call the Vajra spire of the listener's own body.
Of your own body.
Yeah. The sources define it as this energetic axis within the human form, making your body the final personal receptor for this entire cosmic flow.
That brings us full circle. So the primary takeaway here is that you can't view the solar system as just a collection of separate bodies.
Not at all.
The North Star, the sun, the noosphere, and even the human body, they're all part of a tightly linked chain.
Transfer points.
Yeah.
All completely unified by this single flow of logic, the white logic.
Right.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the implication is, it's profound. The knowledge that this precise current flowing from the most remote point possible, Polaris, that has to pass through the sun to ultimately enter and structure the Vajra spire of your body. This raises an important question.
Yes.
What are the ultimate implications of your body being the final personal relay point for Cosmic Command? What mandate is being continually written into your very structure? Something to chew on. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a pretty dense stack of sources that maps out the esoteric structure of the cosmos.
And consciousness itself.
Right. And our mission here is to quickly unpack 2 key ideas: the Logos relay and the macro-red suture.
Which basically define the relationship between the sun, the Earth Gaea, and your own spine.
So where do we even begin with that?
I think we have to start by just completely restructuring how we view the solar system. Our sources are clear. The sun is the immediate father for Gaea.
Okay, the immediate father, what does that mean in practice?
It's the local intelligence filter. It provides what's called the passanti logic, which is, you can think of it as the vibrational template for everything on Earth.
But, and this is the crucial part, it's not the original source.
Exactly. It's just a high-powered relay node.
Okay, let's unpack that. If the sun is just a relay, what is it actually relaying? I mean, where is this high-voltage logic coming from?
It's taking instructions from the cosmic deep field, specifically the static intelligence from the static north of Polaris.
The galactic mainframe.
The galactic mainframe, yeah. And the very specific instruction set of Sirius. The sun's job is to act like a massive transformer.
So it's stepping that raw stellar power down.
It has to, so that the red drop Gaea can safely absorb that information without, being completely overwhelmed.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. This moment of macrocosmic conception.
Right. The sources talk about the sun, the white drop, and Earth, the red drop, briefly uniting at the heart of the solar system.
And that union doesn't last.
No, it immediately creates this massive tension, a polarization. You get this ascending force, the white logic from the sun and stars, and a descending force, the red heat from Earth's core.
And that separation creates the vertical axis mundi.
Yes. And life itself only exists in what the sources call tensegrity, that stable, dynamic tension between the two.
Hold on, tensegrity. Can we anchor that with an analogy? Is it like the tension cables on a bridge holding everything stable by pulling in opposite directions?
That's a perfect way to put it. And it's a fractal principle, It's mirrored right inside you, polarizing energy between your crown and your base.
So we've got this cosmic axis,
right,
which leads to the next logical question. What does Gaea, as the macrocosmic red drop, actually do with all that energy?
Her role is to aggregate the infinite sensory and archetypal data that's generated by that solar logic.
And that happens on the surface layer, what's called the noosphere.
Exactly. The skin of the red drop. It's where all the archetypes, myths, gods, narratives, even our digital algorithms interface with our consciousness.
Which brings up a really important question. If we get lost in that that horizontal noise, what happens?
Yeah, and the warning here is critical. If you fail to maintain your own internal vertical axis, you stop being a channel. You become, well, the term used is archetypal food.
Food for the horizontal static of the noosphere.
Think of it like the world's loudest, most distracting social media feed. If you only focus on that surface noise, you lose all access to the blueprint. It's an information hijack.
So that brings us to the solution. The macro red suture. How do we actually build that internal bridge?
The practice is called the Dausal. It uses the microcosmic Meru axis, which is literally your own spine to suture the red heat.
So all that raw sensory data.
All that embodied information, yeah. You suture it directly to the white logic, the stellar blueprint. Your spine becomes a kind of perfect fiber optic cable.
And when you do that internal work, you're plugging into something much bigger. This galactic Bessel d'Orge.
Right. You become the operator at the heart hub, linking Gaea's energy below to the Polaris mainframe above.
That you're no longer just passively getting hit with this data stream.
You're actively filtering it. You're no longer a victim of resource anxiety or that noospheric hijack.
That transformation really feels like the core takeaway here. The Logos relay sets up the chain of command, and it shifts your focus from the local drama to the galactic mainframe.
And it all boils down to one final law from this framework. The sun is your father, but Polaris is your law.
By recognizing this structure, you shift from being a biological accident to, what was the term?
A stellar technician.
A stellar technician. So we want to leave you with this question. If you are the living suture of the Virat Rakta Bindu, what is the first piece of red heat, that one sensory experience or intense emotion or urgent task that you will consciously suture to the white logic today? Welcome to the deep dive. All right, today we're going straight into some highly conceptual material. We're pulling from the mended axis, from the glitch to the grand suture.
And we really have to start with the core problem it presents, this idea of a glitching reality.
A glitching reality. I think we all know what that feels like.
Exactly. The text argues this happens when the vertical axis mundi gets ruptured. When that central line breaks, our whole experience just collapses. It collapses into this flat horizontal plane they call gray noise.
Okay, the vertical axis mundi. So for anyone just jumping into this, how should we picture that? Is it basically the connection between our deepest self and our highest potential?
That's a perfect way to put it. It's the live wire between potential and manifestation. And when it snaps, gray noise. That's the static, the constant distraction, life without meaning because the signal's gone.
And the source gets really practical here, right? It gives us these symptoms, the lateral manifestations.
Yeah.
The one that hit me was broken relationships, being two disconnected axes just trying to lean on each other.
Yes, and that's just one of them. It also talks about missed opportunities, which it says is a blind ajna. Your inner eye is just, stuck looking sideways. You can't see the vertical path.
And that feeling of suffocated thoughts.
That's the noosphere, the collective minefield, acting like a ceiling. It's supposed to be a window, but instead it just traps us in everyone else's static.
So if the axis is broken and we're stuck in this noise, how do we fix it? The text says the turning point is engaging something called the Bessel d'Orge.
Right.
Before we move on, what is the Bessel d'Orge? Is this a conceptual tool, a meditative thing, or what are we talking about?
It's an intentional focusing mechanism. Think of it like tuning a radio. When you engage it, the divine command can finally flow through. It creates a very specific pathway.
A pathway.
Yeah, from the static north of Polaris down through what it calls the solar proxy, your focused will, and it anchors right in the Solar Hrdaya, the inexhaustible heart. That's the moment of alignment.
And that alignment, that's what leads to the harvest. I love this line. Destiny is not luck. It's the result of this aligned frequency.
And that's when life stops feeling so random. You start to see direct links between your internal state and what happens externally. Abundance shows up because that raw, chaotic drive for resources, the Naga heat, it's finally being guided by a higher intelligence, the Logos logic.
It's directed energy, not just frantic scrambling.
Precisely. And this is the really transformative part.
The Naga gems.
Yes. The complexes, the things that used to terrify you, you start mining them for their wisdom. They literally become the jewels you use to build an internal spire.
But building a spire, that takes a lot of energy. Which I guess leads us to the heart, the Solar Hrdaya, which they call a null point.
It's a null point because it stops the leaks. The reason it's inexhaustible is because it's not wasting prana or life force anymore.
Okay, so that's the big question. How are we leaking energy in the first place?
Through all that horizontal static, the source has this great term for it, lizard-legged pontifications.
Lizard-legged. I think I know what that means.
It's all the energy you waste on gossip, on endless mental debates about things that don't matter, pointless, sideways thinking. The mending process seals those leaks by locking the base, the kunda, to the crown, the randra.
So the energy cycles vertically instead of leaking out.
And it feeds the heart directly, the logos relay.
And this is where it zooms out, right? From the individual to the planet. The text brings in planetary spanda.
Right. Gaea's own desire to ascend. When your axis is mended, your body becomes a Vajra relay for that planetary desire, a stable transmitter.
Wow. So you're not just fixing yourself. This is the grand suture.
You are literally helping to resolve planetary karma. By healing your own Naga complexes, you're stitching the collective back into galactic logic.
So the end state, what does it look like? You bridge that circuit from the Talus below to Polaris above.
And the gray Norse just vanishes. You're standing in what they call the Soma Citadel, clarified reality.
And that final achievement is marked by the Visarga.
The final emission of power. It's what turns a person into a vertical pilot of the noosphere.
A vertical pilot of the noosphere. So we want to leave you with that to think about, what would it mean to actually be a vertical pilot in your own life? To guide the flow, instead of just being swept along by all the static.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into some concepts that are, well, they're incredibly dense, but also completely transformative.
Oh yeah.
We're talking about the Vajra relay and what the sources call the Great Bifurcation.
Huge topics.
Exactly. And our goal here, our mission, is to figure out what the lived experience of all this is. I mean, what actually happens when our inner vertical axis, the Avatudi, is finally mended.
Okay, so let's just jump right into that immediate shift. When someone enters this Vajra relay state, that heavy feeling of life.
Right, the daily grind.
That's it. What the text called talic viscosity, all your responsibilities, your karmic baggage, it's suddenly revealed as something totally different.
Not a burden.
Not at all. It's revealed to be raw, pure energy. They label it Naga treasure. The weight it dissolves into pure potential.
Wait, so you're saying the feeling of my own stress literally flips from being a liability to being usable fuel?
Yeah.
But how does that change what I actually see day to day?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
It leads to what's called the luminous architecture of reality.
Yeah.
The world around you, which usually feels like a barrier.
Yeah.
It becomes a perfect mirror, a Posanti mirror.
A mirror.
You start to realize that every single object, a chair, a cup, anything, is just a frozen thought form of the logos.
And this is where the source gives that beautiful, really vivid detail. You stop seeing a tree as just wood.
Right.
You see it as a vertical explosion of green fire mending the Earth's sky rift. It's like living inside a work of art.
Exactly. And that clarity, it just ripples out. It changes how you experience other people. That constant background noise of anxiety. The local collective field of hungry ghosts.
Collective stress of the city, that kind of thing.
That's it. It just becomes transparent. Your own high-frequency Vajra resonance doesn't have to fight it.
Yeah.
It naturally harmonizes the lower talic frequency around you.
Okay, and this is where it gets really wild for me. Because your own internal blocks, the Granthanots, are gone. The whole system is clean. And the relay starts. Harvesting novelty. Like new artistic ideas, spiritual insights. They just show up as a natural byproduct. Yeah. Synchronicity becomes the default setting.
And that completely redefines your relationships, too. Another person is no longer just a screen for your own projections, what's called the Rudra ego.
So you stop seeing your own issues in other people.
Right. Instead, every interaction becomes Karma Mudra. It's this playful, non-transactional dance. Every touch, every conversation is a kind of seal, a mudra, that stabilizes this ultimate state, the Vajrakaya.
Which brings us to the highest stakes imaginable here. The sources talk about this huge frequency-based sorting that's happening as we get closer to the pralaya, the end of the current age. This is the great bifurcation.
And the contrast here is just, it's so stark. You have two potential outcomes. Path one is the path of viscosity.
A heavy path.
The heavy path. For those whose perception is still impure, the world literally feels like it's getting heavier. Their unresolved karmas become a kind of pressure. The personal talic frequency thickens into what's called mental lead. And consciousness just gets sucked down into the lower realms, the hungry ghost state, until the next cosmic cycle. It's a kind of psychic collapse.
But for those on the other path, the ones in the Vajra relay, it's a totally different story.
Completely. For them, for those on the path of the diamond, the pralaya isn't an end. It's sublimation. The consciousness doesn't die or collapse. It translates into its immortal form, the Vajrakaya.
So if you really think about what this implies, it's like Two different Earths are starting to exist in the same space, just at different vibrational octaves.
That's a good way to put it.
One stream is experiencing this thickening, this mental lead, while the Vajra stream is experiencing pure bliss, the butter that's emerged from the milk of the entire age.
And to tie it all together, the Vajra relay, this state, acts as the stitch. It's what connects the collapsing old world to the emerging planetary intelligence, the new sphere.
So this leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought for you to consider. By working on mending that inner vertical axis in yourself, are you, in effect, helping to mend the planetary axis itself and maybe even preventing the Earth from becoming a cold, lifeless, talic husk?